Hello and welcome back to our reviews of Scalextric cars. The decade that we're looking at today is the 1990s. If you've seen these reviews before, you'll know that first of all we'll have a quick chat about the one-to-one car, then we'll be looking in more detail at the Scalextric car and any unique features that this may have within the set of 6 that we are reviewing, and then finally we're going to take this car over to our racing track and we'll see how well it performs amongst its peers. So without further ado, let's crack on. Today we have a 1998 Scalextric car. This is the winning 1996 British Touring Car Championship car driven by Frank Biella. And in a slight departure from what we've been looking at up until now, so all of our reviews from the 1980s through to the 1990s, this car is actually pretty much an exact replica of the 1996 winning car driven by Frank Biella. Now, interestingly, within the 1990s, the Scalextric catalogue, you will start to see licensed models appearing. Now, more common is the F1 models, they're very common, but there are other models that are reproduced with the permission of things like the Porsches, I think you'll find within that catalogue. But this doesn't fit that bill. This car is simply an excellent reproduction, but there was no indication within the 1998 catalogue that it had been reproduced with Audi's permission. Okay, so that's a little bit of background about the car itself. Now let's bring the camera over here and we'll have a more detailed look at this Scalextric car. Okay, see you in a sec. Okay, so here we have our race car, the 1996 winning British Touring Car Champion, driven by Frank Biella. As you can see, it is a very nicely detailed car. There is an awful lot of decals. You know, it's a bit secondhand, so some of them are a bit worn away, but we got lovely decals across the roof, a nice banner on the windscreen here, this lovely Audi sign all the way up the side. Details such as the number, this is the number that Frank Biella drove. Again, more decals. The wheels, these are the same as the car that Frank Biella drove. If we look at the front, we've got the lovely Audi sign glittering away there in chrome. We've got some lights, more decals along the front there. Everything about this car is screaming that it's just a lovely looking model. What I'd like to bring your attention, I think these may be replacements. The originals in the catalogue are yellow, and indeed on the one-to-one car, the wing mirrors themselves are yellow. That said, I looked around, I couldn't find a yellow roll cage anywhere, so whether or not this is just a liberty that Scalextric have decided to take or not, I don't know. But again, inside, very nicely detailed body, very nicely detailed cockpit, and there's some markings within the parcel shelf here, and indeed they carry on through the cockpit. We have a proper gear stick inside this cockpit as well, so you know, Scalextric have really gone to town in the creation or recreation of this model, and yet nowhere in the material that I've seen is there anywhere that says that Audi gave them permission to do this. As far as the details on the car itself go, again, we've got our doors, we've got our door handles here, we've got our shut lines all the way around the body. We've got some nice curvature there in the bonnet, so you can see how it lifts up in the center. Again, all very, very nicely reproduced. So a brilliant car all in all. Underneath, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So we have our Magna traction magnet, we have our Mabuchi motor, and we have our new Easy Fit guide. So we'll just pluck that out and remove it. But right here, this is one of the unique features of this model that we're going to be looking at today. So if I undo that and I pop it out using this screwdriver, what we get to see is that is a single light bulb, and that single light bulb lights all 4 lights in this particular car. Indeed, I think what Scalextric are moving away from is expecting us to undo the screws and remove the body from the chassis. What they've done with this car is they've allowed full access to the lights and the guide, so you can change the brushes, so you have no need to take the car apart. And again, that's, I think, part of this Magna traction move was to make things a bit easier, and part of this move here is to make things a bit easier. And that said, as I'm sure many of the people watching will know, these never really caught on, and we'll probably see a little bit of that on the track and the reason why. But let's have a bit of a closer look at that. So we'll pop out the last screw. There are only 2 screws holding this body on. We just drop that one away. So we have one screw right up front here, which drops in underneath the guide. So we don't even have access to that unless we remove the guide, and we have another screw at the back. So if we look at the chassis, we've come to see this, the Easy Fit guide, where we have these two electrical plugs that plug in, and then they are soldered to the motor to provide power from the track back to the motor. If we look underneath, however, what we can see, if we look at our bulb, we can see that there are a couple of contacts, one there and one there, and those contacts mark on here and here. So they connect to the track power via these electrical connectors, which in turn themselves are connecting to the bottom of our brushes underneath our guide. So we're picking the power up off the track and we're channeling it not just to the lights through these two extended electrical contacts here, but also into the car itself. Our front, you can see our Audi grille is part of that. And again, at the front, we've got our usual floppy axle, which we don't particularly like because it doesn't give the car very much support through the corners. And we've got our usual clipped-in rear axle here, so that stays nice and firm within the car itself. The rear wheels, these are nicely worn. You can see that they used to be ribbed, but they're getting quite smooth on the outside. So that's a benefit for us. So we've got some good amount of grip. We've got quite a wide tyre here as well. So that should give us a good amount of grip when we're testing this. And we have quite a long guide length as well. So from the centre of the guide through to the centre of the rear axle, it's quite a good length. So all in all, this car should perform quite well. The only thing that I can notice that worries me a little bit is that we're quite narrow. So being narrow, I think that will probably in turn give us a bit of a tippy tendency and maybe slow us down from driving as fast as we'd like to drive. However, that said, the rest of the car is looking pretty neat. So what we're going to do, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to measure the magna traction, the downforce that this particular car has. So I don't need the body on to do this. All I need is to take the weight of the car as it sits in front of us. Let me just get that there. Take the weight of the car. I see 46.6. I tear that goes back to 0. And then we place the magnet over the bar here on our tester. And that gives us a downforce of 21.9, 22 grams. So we're in the 20 to 25 gram range. If you remember with our XJ8, the first car that we tested, we were 30 to 35 grams of magnetic downforce. And with our Jaguar XJ220, the second car we tested, we were within the 15 to 20 gram range. So here we are 20 to 25 grams. So more downforce than the Jaguar XJ220, but not as much as the Jaguar XJ8. So before we do our track test, let's have one last look at this body. And the way that the lighting system works is the light bulb itself goes in here. So that will be in there. And then it channels the light down through these channels that you see here to our rear lights and down through these channels to our front lights. So a single bulb is feeding both the rears and the front lights in turn. So again, a very simple system, but nicely done. I mean, overcomplicated perhaps with all of these bits and pieces here, but then we're only using a single light bulb and we're able to change that light bulb without actually taking this body off and having to see any of this stuff in here. So quite a nice little system there. And of course, people who are watching this may well know that didn't particularly catch on. And we may have an indication of why that didn't catch on when we look at this car running. So without further ado, let's take it to the track and see how well she performs. Hello, welcome back. So this is my favourite part of our reviews, the track test. So we get to see how well the car performed. Down here in our corner we have our previous two cars, so our Jaguar XJ8 with 30 to 35 grams of magnetic downforce, did a lap of 6.51. Then we have our Jaguar XJ220 with 15 to 20 grams of magnetic downforce and a 6.83 time. Now, if you remember, this here is running 20 to 25 grams of magnetic downforce. So we'll see whether or not that has an effect on the lap times that we get out in terms of where we believe it should fit. I think it should be below the Jaguar XJ220 myself. As a British touring car, I don't think it should be as fast as an endurance car, but we will see. So What we're going to do is we've got a timing system here. I'm going to do 5 laps. The idea is not the very fastest laps. The idea is to give you 5 clean laps around the track, and then we'll just get an idea of how fast she's going. As we do our first out lap, there won't be any timing system active, and what we'll do is we'll look at the rear lights as we go down this straight, and then we'll look at the front lights as we come down this straight. We'll have a camera view, track camera level view, so that you can see those, and we can talk about that later. The lap timing system will call out the laps as we go around, so you'll be able to hear them. And without further ado, let's get going. Okay. So here we'll see the rear lights. There we go, and here we see the fronts. All right.
7.07.
It's a nice car.
6.63.
Okay, 6.6.
6.73. 6.63. 6.70.
Okay. So, first things first, we had our best lap of 6.63 in there, so we are above our Jaguar XJ220. Below our Jaguar XJ8, which I'm pleased to see, but we are above the XJ220. And maybe that is in part due to the fact that we have more magnetic downforce. I would also argue that the length of this car, the guide flag to the rear axle is a good distance, so the car would go around the corner slightly better than our XJ220, slightly lighter and better grip on the rear. So I think all of those things have added together to give us that quicker time. For me, that falls out of where it should sit within that list of cars. However, a very, very nice car to drive. If you were to buy this car now and have a go with it, I think you'd agree. Looks very nice as well, drives very nicely, and it's not too quick. I mean, it's roughly a good car. It's kind of where I would expect it to be. But what you will have noticed is the lights. So we didn't really have any rear lights as we went down here, and we could see the front lights were on, and there's only one bulb, so you know it's feeding both. The problem is that the distance to the rear or the channels to the rear, something about those channels, the way that light is guided, it's just not working. And I think that may well be the reason why Scalextric moved away from here. Potentially there are many other reasons. I know nothing, right? I mean, there are far more clever people than me, but potentially, for me at least, that could be a reason why they went looking for other solutions and came up with ultimately LEDs, which we know is an advancement in technology based on what we've had. But anyway, 6.63 was our fastest lap, 6.75 our average lap, so we're kind of there or thereabouts doing similar laps. Very nice car to drive. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to see more, if you want to see the conclusion of the 1990s Scalextric catalogue car, so there's another 3 to come. We've got an F1 car in there, we've got a rally road car in there as well, and we've got a DTM touring car in there. So if you want to see the conclusion of all of those, then please do subscribe, and you'll be notified as and when I release another video. Generally do 1 a week, maybe sometimes I do 2 a week. So yeah, it won't be long to wait until you see the next one. Hope you enjoyed that, and look forward to seeing you again. Take care.